Knowledge is leverage. That's not a quote you hang on a wall. That's a law you live by. The more you learn, the harder it is for the world to control you. Control starts where confusion lives. Control survives on ignorance, on people not knowing their options, their value, or the game being played around them. The moment you start learning with intention, you start breaking chains. You didn't even know where that. A lot of people think freedom comes from money first, but money without knowledge is temporary. It leaves the same way it comes. Real freedom starts in the mind. When you understand how systems work, how people move, how power circulates, you stop being easy to trap. You stop signing bad deals in life, not just on paper. You stop making emotional decisions that cost you years. The world doesn't need you dumb, but it profits when you are. That's the part nobody likes to say out loud. When you don't know better, you settle easier, you accept less, you follow louder voices instead of smarter ones. And that's how control stays quiet and effective. Not through force, but through lack of awareness. Learning changes how you walk into rooms. You don't rush to speak. You listen. You observe patterns. You catch what others miss. Knowledge sharpens your instincts. It gives context to your pain, meaning to your struggle, and direction to your ambition. Without it, you're just grinding blindly, burning energy without building structure. When you educate yourself, you start realizing that most limits placed on you were never real. They were inherited beliefs, recycled fears, secondhand opinions from people who never studied their way out of the same box they're advising you to stay in. Knowledge makes you question respectfully but firmly. And once you question, control weakens. Learning also teaches patience. You stop chasing fast wins because you understand compounding. You understand that 10 years of consistent study meets one viral moment. You stop being impressed by noise and start respecting strategy. That shift alone separates people who last from people who flash. The more you know, the less you panic. Panic comes from not understanding what's happening. When you study economics, you don't freak out during downturns. When you study people, you don't take everything personal. When you study yourself, you don't self-destruct every time pressure shows up. Knowledge doesn't remove problems. It removes fear around problems. And fear is the easiest way to control a person. A controlled mind reacts. An educated mind responds. That difference is everything. Reaction keeps you in cycles. Response moves you forward. When you know your history, you don't repeat mistakes. When you know your worth, you don't accept disrespect disguised as opportunity. When you know your craft, you don't beg for validation. Education isn't about memorizing facts. It's about understanding cause and effect. If I move like this, what happens next? If I sign this, what's the long-term cost? If I ignore this habit, where does it leave me in 5 years? Most people don't think in sequences. They think in moments. Knowledge stretches your vision, and the more your vision expands, the less controllable you become. People who don't educate themselves are easy to distract, easy to divide, easy to sell dreams to. But when you learn daily, you start seeing through narratives. You don't need to be loud about it. You just move smarter, quietly, consistently, with precision. Self-education also builds self-trust. Every time you learn something new, you prove to yourself that growth is possible. That momentum creates confidence that doesn't depend on applause. You don't need external approval when you know you're progressing internally. That kind of confidence can't be shaken easily. And understand this, nobody can take knowledge from you. They can take money, they can take titles, they can take platforms. But what you know stays with you. It travels, it adapts, it rebuilds. That's why education is the ultimate insurance policy. A lot of people want to escape control, but don't want the discipline that comes with learning. They want freedom without responsibility. But knowledge demands effort. Reading when you're tired, studying when nobody's watching, listening instead of talking, admitting you don't know and going to find out. That humility is power. When you educate yourself, you don't need to be rebellious to be free. You don't need to fight the system loudly. You just understand it well enough to navigate it on your terms. You know when to play the game and when to create your own lane. The world can't easily control someone who knows how to think, not what to think, but how. Critical thinking is dangerous to manipulation. Awareness disrupts exploitation. Understanding creates independence. So every book you read, every skill you learn, every lesson you extract from failure is you reclaiming a piece of your autonomy. You're reducing the world's grip on your decisions. You're increasing your options, and options are power. Stay learning, stay sharp, stay curious. Because the more you know, the harder it is for anyone to move you where you don't want to go. Knowledge isn't just leverage, it's liberation. Self-education is a daily discipline, not a phase and not a motivation wave. It's not something you do when life feels calm or when inspiration hits you out of nowhere. It's something you commit to when you're tired, distracted, under pressure, and unsure if it's even working yet. Because real growth doesn't care about your mood, it responds to consistency. Most people treat learning like a seasonal thing. They get excited, binge information for a few weeks, then disappear when it stops feeling new. That's not education, that's entertainment. Discipline is different. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up whether you feel like it or not. Daily self-education is a decision to respect your future more than your comfort. It's choosing to sharpen your mind while others are numbing theirs. While people are waiting to be motivated, disciplined learners are stacking skills, insight, and awareness. That gap grows fast, even if it starts invisible. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Emotions rise and fall. Structure holds when emotions collapse. If your growth depends on motivation, your progress will always be inconsistent. But when learning becomes part of your daily routine, it becomes automatic. Like brushing your teeth, you don't debate it, you don't negotiate with it, you just do it. Self-education isn't always about big breakthroughs. Most days it's small, a few pages, a short video, one new concept, one corrected mistake. But those small daily efforts compound, not in a way that's loud, but in a way that's permanent. The disciplined learner understands this. Today's lesson might not pay today. It might not pay this year, but it will pay when pressure hits, when decisions matter, when the margin for error is thin. That's when preparation shows up like muscle memory. People say they want to grow, but growth demands repetition. Repetition demands discipline. There's no shortcut around that. You don't become sharp by accident. You don't become informed by luck. You don't become dangerous in your field by hope. Daily self-education also builds mental toughness. You train yourself to focus even when distractions are loud. You train yourself to finish what you start. You train yourself to stay curious instead of defensive. That alone separates leaders from followers. When learning becomes a discipline, you stop chasing trends and start building foundations. You're not jumping from idea to idea, you're connecting dots. You're understanding principles instead of copying tactics, and principles last longer than trends ever will. A disciplined learner doesn't panic when progress feels slow. They understand the process. They know that clarity comes after confusion, not before it. They don't quit when things get complex. Complexity is a sign you're learning something real. Self-education also protects you. It helps you avoid bad decisions, fake opportunities, and empty promises. When you know more, you see more. You hear what's not being said. You read between the lines. That awareness saves time, money, and energy. People who rely on motivation burn out fast. People who rely on discipline outlast. Discipline doesn't need excitement, it needs commitment, and commitment is a promise you keep even when nobody's watching. There will be days when learning feels boring. That's normal. Boredom doesn't mean it's useless. It means your ego isn't being entertained. Discipline pushes past that. Discipline understands that mastery isn't built on excitement, it's built on repetition. Daily self-education also builds identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who wants to improve and start seeing yourself as someone who does improve. That shift is powerful. Once your identity changes, your behavior follows naturally. And understand this, no one can discipline your learning for you. Schools can guide, mentors can advise, but self-education is personal responsibility. Either you take ownership of your growth or you outsource it to chance. A disciplined learning habit gives you leverage in any environment. When situations change, you adapt. When industries shift, you pivot. When challenges hit, you're prepared. That adaptability is earned, not given. People who commit to daily self-education don't always talk about it. They don't need to. Their decisions are sharper. Their timing is better. Their confidence is grounded. They move with clarity, not rush. This isn't about being perfect. You'll miss days. You'll lose focus sometimes. Discipline isn't never failing. It's returning without drama. It's getting back on track without self-pity. Self-education as a discipline means you don't wait for life to force lessons on you. You go looking for them. You shorten the learning curve. You reduce unnecessary pain. In the long run, disciplined learners become hard to replace, hard to manipulate, hard to outgrow, because they're always upgrading themselves. So don't treat learning like a phase. Don't wait for motivation. Build the habit. Respect the process. Show up daily. Because the people who win long term aren't the most motivated. They're the most disciplined. Educating your mind is the fastest way to upgrade your life, your income, and your impact. Not overnight, not by luck, and not by copying somebody else's highlight reel, but by changing the way you think, the way you decide, and the way you move every single day. Everything you touch in life is filtered through your mindset. If the filter is weak, the results will be weak. If the filter is sharp, everything improves. A lot of people try to upgrade their life by changing their environment first. New city, new circle, new job, new image. But if the mind stays the same, the results stay the same. You carry the same habits, the same blind spots, the same reactions into every new situation. Education fixes that at the root. It upgrades the operating system. Yo, Z, when you educate your mind, you start seeing options where you used to see walls. You start feeling stuck because you understand there's always another angle, another strategy, another move. That alone changes how you wake up in the morning. You move with purpose instead of pressure. Income follows thinking. People don't get paid for effort alone. They get paid for insight, problem solving, and execution. The more you learn, the more value you can create. The more value you create, the more leverage you have. That's why two people can work the same hours and live completely different lives. One is using muscle, the other is using mind. Educating your mind teaches you how money really works. Not just how to earn it, but how to keep it, multiply it, and protect it. You stop making emotional, financial decisions. You stop chasing fast money that costs you long-term stability. You start thinking in systems instead of paychecks. But the upgrade doesn't stop at income. It touches your life, your relationships improve because you understand communication. You understand boundaries. You understand that not every reaction deserves your energy. Knowledge gives you emotional control, and emotional control gives you peace. When you educate your mind, you don't get offended easily. You get informed, you don't argue to win, you listen to learn, you realize that silence, when chosen intentionally, is power. That maturity comes from understanding, not age. Impact is where education really shows up. Impact isn't about being loud, it's about being effective. People feel your presence when you know what you're talking about, when your words have weight, when your actions are backed by understanding, not impulse. An educated mind doesn't just chase success, it builds legacy. It asks different questions. How does this affect others? How does this last? How do I create something that works without me being there every second? That level of thinking separates short-term winners from long-term builders. Most people want to upgrade their results without upgrading their thinking. That's why they stay frustrated. They keep doing more of what isn't working, hoping effort will replace insight. But effort without education is expensive. It costs time, energy, and missed opportunities. Educating your mind also teaches you timing. You learn when to push and when to wait, when to speak and when to observe. Timing turns average moves into powerful ones. And timing only comes from understanding patterns. When pressure hits, educated minds don't panic. They analyze. They've studied enough to know that every problem has structure. And if it has structure, it has a solution. That calm under pressure is an upgrade money can't buy. The fastest upgrade doesn't come from motivation speeches or temporary hype. It comes from daily learning, reading when others scroll, studying when others complain, listening when others interrupt. Those quiet habits create loud results over time. Educating your mind also builds self-respect. You stop cutting corners, you stop settling, you know too much to accept less than you deserve. That confidence isn't arrogance, it's clarity. And the world responds differently to clarity. Opportunities show up when you're prepared, not when you're desperate. Education prepares you. It sharpens your instincts. It helps you recognize real opportunities versus distractions dressed as progress. An upgraded mind creates an upgraded circle. Conversations change. Goals change. Standards change. You're no longer impressed by surface level success. You respect depth, you respect consistency, you respect substance. This isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the most aware. Awareness is a real upgrade, awareness of self, awareness of others, awareness of the moment. When you educate your mind daily, growth becomes inevitable. Life improves because your decisions improve. Income improves because your value improves. Impact improves because your understanding improves. So if you're looking for the fastest upgrade, don't chase shortcuts. Chase knowledge. Feed your mind. Protect your focus. Invest in learning like your future depends on it, because it does. Upgrade the mind and everything else will follow.